All right, everybody. So I have returned. Um, there was a lot of reconnect. And when I came into my phone to check to see if everything was okay, like I totally got disconnected. I did not end the stream. So I said, you know what? I'm not going to let this get me down. I'm actually just going to go over it once again and try my best to see how best I can get everything done because this has been weird. People don't believe in Mercury retrograde. Well, I am having it right now. So I'm just going to go right through um, my notes that I have here because I do believe that the information is very important. I know that I had a really cool intro and all that earlier, but the information is just as important. So I will just get right to it. And hopefully, it does not just record 6 minutes and the internet is stabilized. So, welcome. I am the Afro Fairy Goddess. If this is the first time for you being here, thank you for your time. And if you're watching this later, thank you again because your time is also very important later on as well. So, today I am going to be speaking really quickly about how to spiritually hermit. And, you know, I'm not sure if this live is going to end up as an official podcast because I do have a podcast called the Afro Fairy Goddess Podcast on Apple, and I believe it's on Stitcher and Spotify and all the rest, wherever you listen to your podcast. But we will see. I'm trying something new here, so hopefully this is something that can work out. Um, so, as I was saying earlier, there's a lot of different types of energy that is currently happening right now within the stars, if you will. And there's a lot of retrograde energy. And I find that when we talk about retrogrades, we talk a lot about Mercury retrograde, for example. And sometimes we give that poor planet a really hard time. People usually lose their ish about it. Computers and internet do not work. Case in point, transportation issues happen, breaks down in communication, how we speak to others, various little things. But currently, I do believe that there is a Venus in retrograde. There's a planet called Chiron, which is also in retrograde. And overall, it is a season of retrogrades. It is what I call the spiritual tax season, if you will. Um, and oh yes, then on Thursday there is a full moon, the second one for the month, a blue moon, and that will be in Pisces as well for those of you who are out there. And Virgo season just started, you know. So for me, this is a huge representation of the energy we'll be carrying on with in the coming months, and they call it spiritual tax season. So retrogrades are you taking inventory of the who, the what, the where, and of course the why of your current journey. And if you've been doing good and you've been doing a good upkeep, you get a nice karma rebate. You know what I mean? If you haven't, well, you gotta pay tax, man. Everybody has to pay the tax, man. If you are new to astrology, and I know a lot of us are, the easiest way, I guess, for me to explain it, I guess, or really understand all of this is just to really look at the planet in question, its representation, and then juxtapose that into what that represents for you in your own birth chart. So, for example, Venus deals a lot with love. For example, so you might look at your self love or how your love is for others within your chart. You might look at Jupiter. Jupiter deals with luck a lot as well. Your expansion, how you expand in life and opportunities, etc. So you might look at that as well and see where you are in your life. So when we look at the word also retrograde, um, retro, when we break it down, we see the word retro in the front, obviously, of retrograde. And for me, that reminds me a lot of retrospective, having a look back for us within the Afrocentric community. Sankofa is a big conversation as well. Then there is retro, like old time or vintage, maybe even a classic, and going back to re experience a thing or a moment, maybe figuring out what the heck it all means and how did we get to this point. Now, all of this is just my perspective. Huh? I'm sure that the dictionary et al. Will have their own expressions, their own explanations, and what have you. So you can also go and check that out as well. But for me, this is what I look at, and this is how it helps me to amplify myself positively. Now, in terms of Virgo season, which, as I said before, has already started, we're transitioning now into the darker parts of the year, autumn and winter months. And with the autumn equinox, which is just around the corner, I don't personally have a heavy representation of those seasons coming up as I am from the Caribbean. But you do notice some things that change even though we don't have, snow, for example. So, like, you guys might have the snow, but we get the chill in the air. Outside definitely gets cooler to like a light chill depending on which part of the island you're on, which gully or hill you might be living on. You will feel that air coming from the north. Um, the sun, the sun, girl, the sun goes on vacation. We don't see the sun no more. The sun usually just disappears after like a 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock. Blam, it's black outside. That's the end of that. Whereas like right now, it's pretty lit still. Summer is still peeking around, but it's the last days of summer, so everybody is just embracing the last days, if you will. But from like September, October, that's over with. It's kind of eerie if you think about it, having sun and then the whole time slot just changes, and the veil itself gets really, really thin as well between here and the spirit world. And for me, it's a really deep ancestral time as well. So there may be some who celebrate Halloween, etc. Depending on where you are from, on your culture, it could be part or similar to that as well. So Virgo season is also, what do you call it? Inside of the tarot deck. For those of, I don't even have my tarot decks here right now. Do I? No, I don't. Um, the tarot deck. It has the Hermit in it, which is a major card, major arcana card, and that is actually a representation of Virgo season. And it the Hermit. I guess that's where I got this notion from at the very, very beginning of everything. The Hermit is where I found myself thinking about how we are hermiting at this time to prep for our spiritual hibernation. And that spiritual hibernation is you processing your next steps for the next cycle, which is spring, where we start our journey all over again into the elevation here on this plane. And many of us have different things going on. We might be helping others, we might be breaking generational curses or trauma, whatever it is that you should be doing, right? So here are a few quick suggestions that I'm going to share with you now to help you to assist yourself in this annual transition. So the first one is a spiritual detox. A spiritual detox. So what does that mean? It's not really necessarily from food. Uh, it could be anything in your life. It could be your surroundings. It could be the people who you interact with. That negative self-talk that you find yourself in. There's also that as well. Um, there are the distractions when you start to be around them. Um, Try your best to use them as less as you can. And I know that's kind of hard to say, especially when we are addicted to something, not necessarily drugs, but it could just be sugar. I have a heavy addiction with sugar. I know that for a fact. So when you see yourself going towards that, move away. And detoxing really does take discipline. And I wish more people would acknowledge that, because with discipline comes consistency. And when we are consistent, it makes things easier to either do away with. Your consistency helps you break bad habits or even bring forth new ones. So it's mostly discipline that you have to really be a challenge with in terms of your habits. Even on social media, you should be removing accounts and conversations that don't amplify your highest good. Remove all the guilty pleasures within your food that may cause your body to slow down or process within your gut. Here, also, I will make a point that Virgo deals with the stomach, the intestines. I can't remember if they're the small intestine or the large intestine, but it does deal with your gut. So maybe if you are in pretty good health, still check it with your doctor and do a fast. Do a fast. Maybe over a weekend. It doesn't have to be like a 2 week or a 1 week. You can do it for a couple days. And it is to encourage your body to connect with mind, or rather your mind, as you remove all of these blockages from your system. And I have quite a few friends who usually tend to do their physical detox during the equinoxes as well as the solstices. So even though we have an autumn equinox coming up, there's the winter solstice. It's kind of like a reset for each season so that your body is keeping up with your mind and spirit and vice versa. Now, I also have a friend here. I found out about this yesterday, where apparently she actually gives up her phone time. She gives her phone to her household, and she tells them, "I'm not, I'm not using the phone for the rest of the weekend." They take all her calls, and she just sits with herself and listens to herself, listens to downloads from spirit, because we spend so much time talking and interacting with everybody and always communicating, and always going, that we never really stop to be still, to listen and ingest to what you may need to hear at that time. So I'm actually going to add that to my list of things to do as well. So I couldn't come on my live and not speak about journaling. Those who will watch this later will probably chuckle at this, but journaling is a very big part of my life. Um, I've fallen off my routine a lot recently, but it really does help you put things into perspective. So, journaling, at some point in our lives, we may have come across either the idea of journaling or the act of journaling. But really, what is it? Even if those of us who go to therapy, which is fantastic if you are, by the way, you may have a therapist who may give you some retrospectives, retro, to go back and do on your own and sit with your own thoughts and write out how you're feeling, or some goals that they may set for you. So journaling, to me, this is not any official thing that I took. To me, journaling is the act of recorded thoughts, feelings, manifestations, or activities. It is the research of the self. It is a record or a documentation of who you are and who you would like to be, encapsulated in a frame within time and space. So I'll say that again. Journaling is the act of recorded thoughts, feelings, manifestations, or activities. It is the research of the self. It is a record or a documentation of who you are and who you would like to be, encapsulated in a frame within time and space. So when I have my clients and I suggest that they do some journaling, I usually get, should I write or should I type? And it's kind of tricky because everybody's different and everybody has their own preferences, and comfortabilities, if that is the right word I'm using. Personally, I'm an author. I write for a living, so I'm gonna want to write. Um, I prefer to write. It's more creative and it's even more magical. And studies have shown that your brain is actually more active when you write. And for me, there is a pleasure point that happens knowing and acknowledging that my thoughts come from my higher self, filter through my body, it goes through my chakras, it goes through all of my aura, and then it filters through my fingertips and onto the medium and translated into a form of communication. That also goes well for those who do visual art as well. Um, and I guess writing is an art too, a visual type of art. So yeah, this could be in the form of poem, novel, a piece of art, even a doodle, a simple, cute doodle. And writing gives us a point of focus. So words are symbols. The letters we use today are our hieroglyphics. So, for example, in ancient Kemet, it would be pictures and symbols, etc. So now, when we write these pictures or symbols, it creates a picture in our mind's eye, a third eye, if you will. And the clearer you write, the clearer the picture will be in your mind. Every word is a symbol or a trigger, and each symbol has a corresponding image. That image now in your mind sets a frequency, it sets a vibration to the thing or the event that you want. It may take some time to get what you want. So, like today, you're going to manifest a car, you're not going to get it tomorrow, unless you're super lucky and you're like on that really cool higher plane to get that stuff. But you're going to maybe have to work for that car, or you're really going to have to work for that money, or the thing that you want to manifest, whatever it is. The how of that is a completely different rabbit hole, and I can't get into that right now. So, we can just keep it moving. But when you have the fun of the idea of creation in your mind, it's already happened. That is why, if you do it correctly, the formula of vision boards work. And I know that there are many people who will say that vision boards are a waste of time and they don't work and da 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 da. A vision board is not like you put it up as a piece of art. You have to work with it. It is to remind your subconscious about the things that you want to achieve, about the things you want to manifest. And every time you look up and you see that reminder, it programs you to work towards that goal. People just make vision boards and they just put them up and plaster them up all around their homes and expect, hey, well, I made a vision board and I'm done now, waiting for my gift. No, it doesn't work like that. You have to work towards the thing that you have set out to get. So very quickly, because of time, I want to also talk about how this record or the documentation of the self can help with mapping your habits. So, really quickly, for example, each cycle of the moon, we got blue moon next week, each cycle of the moon, the sun, the stars, and the planets, I personally, the Afro fairy goddess, looks back at what was my focus on then? Where was my mind set? What were my spiritual challenges at that time? And align that with the messages from the sky. Like where was I in this moment of time? And what was I doing? Who was I with? What were the conversations to be had? Were they fulfilling? Were they absent minded? Did I really care? you know it really really helps. What were my spiritual challenges at the time? And when I do that, you know you gotta ask yourself, why was this happening, or why not? Did I have wants? Did I have desires at that time? What types of trauma was there? Have I healed from that? Have I manifested from then? Why or why not? These are little things that you can look at. And I also want to be clear right here, right now, not to be ashamed to write or read about past, present, or future scribbles. These are you in your truest form. Never ever look at your writings, scribbles, whatever it is, and feel that they're lesser than or that you are lesser than. Nobody has to see what you've written. You don't have to share it on the internet or with your neighbor next door. You know what I mean? If you want a pink rhinoceros as a pet, get the pink rhinoceros as a pet. It could be a stuffed animal later on down the road. You never know. Write it down. We've been introduced and indoctrinated not to ask for the truest forms of ourselves. And we are always pushed into these acceptability politics. But whose acceptability is it that we have been taught to literally accept? If you're not journaling for or from your truest self, then who are you journaling for? Then it's just a bunch of books that you're writing novels and selling them. You're the next, I can't remember the lady who wrote Harry Potter, but you're the next Toni Morrison. You're writing a beloved note to somebody. You're not really writing to better yourself. You are God's highest form of creation. God's favorite, as they say online. Why wouldn't he and she want the highest for you if you're God's favorite? Act as such. Now, there are a couple forms of journaling that I'm just going to touch on really, really quick before I leave. Of course, everybody should know about gratitude journaling, even if you haven't done it. The name suggests what it is, gratitude journaling. And when you are grateful for things, even the slightest bit, I could say, hey, I'm really grateful for the last bit of this water to get me through the very end of this conversation. I could be grateful for so many of the little things that may seem or be deemed insignificant. But when you start to be grateful for the little things that you do have, what tends to happen is that you start to realize that you had a lot more than you actually realize. And going through a gratitude journal on the days when life is pretty shitty, you realize that life isn't really that bad. My favorite form of journaling right now is something called the stream of consciousness journaling. So it is currently my favorite way to journal, and it has been my favorite way to journal now for quite some time. And really, really quick, the stream of consciousness journaling is a free writing technique where you write down whatever you are thinking without planning or censoring. How amazing is that? So, when I am teaching my writing courses, for example, I do something similar called free writing. So I don't know if people out here who will be watching this later know what free writing is, but you just keep your pen on the paper without stopping, and you just keep writing. You just keep writing. You just literally keeps writing for whatever amount of time, until the moderator tells you stop or you've timed yourself to whenever the alarm goes off, etc. Um, It's not really long. 5 minutes is really long to free write. Your hand will drop off possibly. But it does help remove some junk and thoughts from your creative process. And it also helps with writer's block. So if you are a writer out there and you happen to see this and you've gone this far in this life, try some free writing. It helps a lot. So in terms of stream of consciousness, it is more a focused objective to not just help clear your mind, but to analyze your thoughts, understand yourself and your feelings. So it is also suggested that handwriting, like I said way earlier when I started out talking about this journaling thing, instead of typing, slows the pace and it helps to engage your brain. You literally can paint, you can draw, you can write, you can doodle, you can do whatever you want in stream of consciousness journaling. And just allow yourself not to think for a little bit. Just be, just be in the moment. Don't think about anything. Don't worry about anything. Just be free without the guilt or the stress of restrictions. So those are my few tidbits. I was trying to find the right word, but that's the only word that's coming to me. Few tidbits that I have here in terms of hermiting, going into the self and self-reflecting. Of course, you can probably add on shadow work as well. Shadow work is really dense to do if you're not ready, and really critiquing yourself about who you really are and having a really hard conversation with yourself. Some people don't like to do it. It's not an easy exercise to do. People in psychology have done that as well in terms of shadow work. I think it actually came from psychology. I could be wrong, but doing shadow work is not an easy thing, and you gotta prepare yourself for what is at hand, because when we look at ourselves and the choices we've made and maybe relationships that may have occurred, you blame yourself a lot for your mistakes. I should have known better. I shouldn't have trusted that person. And then you start to lose trust within yourself. And you want to know, am I going to continue to make bad choices and have bad people and things and places in my life all the time? You put a lot of pressure on yourself. And whilst shadow work is dark work, and you're going into that unknown side, your subconscious mind and your subconscious self, it's nothing to be scared of. It really does help you to actualize who you are in the best possible way. So I do hope that all of these things that I have given you this evening, in spite of the retrograde mishaps that occurred this evening, I do thank you for being patient. I see some people digging in, darting in and out, sorry. So I do appreciate you've come to check in on me and make sure that everything is fine. And you can possibly watch this in its entirety at your own convenience. So I'm not sure if this is something that I will continue again in terms of this particular topic, but I do hope in the future I'm able to come back and sit with you where this is concerned. You can go and check out the official podcast, the Afro Fairy Goddess podcast on Apple, Stitcher. I'm also on Spotify, officially more so on Spotify, or any other place that you get your podcast. I am actually here now, living on YouTube. I've really detoxed myself from all forms of social media, but there is an inkling for me to be here. So I'll be here on YouTube as much as I can. And finally, you can also check me out on Patreon. I have been away a little bit, but I'm now getting back into the speed of things. So to even delve even more deeply into Afro spirituality and Afrocentrisms, it's a big word, you can chat me over there for more deep centered content in terms of manifestations and acknowledging spirit in different techniques and tools that I will give those who are a part of it. I also have a book club. We are slowly going through Women Who Runs with Will. So if you want to be a part of that, just let me know. You can drop me a message here. Speaking of dropping messages, you can send me an email to the Afro Fairy Goddess podcast at gmail.com, and I will certainly get back to you. And lastly, the AfroFairyGoddess.com as well, to go over there and check out whatever it is that I do. I got readings. You can sign up for some readings as well. I do readings. I do a whole host of things. So you can check out the website there as well, and the little blog too. So thank you for being here. It has been a really cool evening in spite of it all. I am the Afro Fairy Goddess, reminding you to always believe in your magic. I will see you next time.